This is Dan Bolen, and I'm the host of a podcast called The Courage to Be Courageous, where people come from all over the world to share stories of their courage that they use to get through their fear. I think we have a wonderful guest today. I think you're going to find him really fascinating. We're going to talk to a gentleman named Gypsy, and let me tell you how I met Gypsy. My partner, John, and I went down and did the 5K run at the Palm Springs I guess you'd say the Palm Springs Pride Run. And we met Gypsy there. And let me tell you how that happened. We went to a restaurant called 849, a whole group of us. And in that restaurant is a room called the Gypsy Room. And we were sitting there, and here comes in Gypsy. It's a room that's named after him. We saw a picture of him on the wall, and I was very fortunate that he gave me his sweater as a gift, which I still have today. But Gypsy is a fascinating story, and as I mentioned, he was the Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade there in Palm Springs. We had, I think, a wonderful conversation with him doing a prelude for this. So, Gypsy, welcome to my podcast. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. It's wonderful. Podcasts are so nice. I can just sit here and your listeners will never know I'm a 91-year-old creep.
I think almost in February will be 92.
92 in February 14th, yeah.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine?
And an incredible man. An incredible man. And by the way, he has a beautiful sweater, which I now have, which he gifted it to me, and I appreciate that. Well, let's tell us a little about your history. People are going to find this fascinating. You've done a lot of movies. You've done a lot of traveling all over the world. You've done TV. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the, let's say, the dancing business, and tell us a little bit how that happened.
Yeah, well, as I've said, I'm 91, going to be 92 if I survive.
You will.
Which I'm sure I hope I will. And, I was born in Valentine's Day in 1932. And I grew up in a wonderful town in New Jersey called Morristown. Went to Morristown High School and schools there. And in those days, for some reason, I was in the a cappella choir and did the high school plays. And in the summer, there was an equity playhouse called the Paper Mill Playhouse in Milburn, New Jersey. These are all towns 28, 30 miles outside of Manhattan in New Jersey. And so in the summer, I would work in sets, painting sets and acting in plays and stuff. But in those days, boys didn't take ballet class very much, not too many in my town. But I and another fella, we did. So that's how I started learning to dance. And then through a strange quirk of fate, after high school, I went to an open call for a Broadway musical. And I had already been listed with a dance agency. And so that didn't work out quite the way I thought, because the agency had gigs for me on the road, opening in Cleveland, rehearsals in New York.
Now, was that the Quorum Dancers?
Yeah, the K. Gorham Dancers. Right. She had a huge agency. So I didn't get on the Broadway show, but I did get on her. I was listed with there. So over the years, I have done Broadway shows on the road and stuff like that. But my dancing career started basically when I was 19 until I was about 39. And I ended up in New York. I traveled all over the world. We were backup dancers. Sometimes we'd have 4 male and 4 girl dancers, or 3 and 3 and 2 and 2. And we'd be back up for singers or back up for this or that. And so my dancing career was that. That's how I got the name Gypsy. because chorus boys and girls that dance either on Broadway or in shows are called gypsies because they go from show to show or town to town. So people just started calling me that. So I'm listed professionally always now, as I have been for years. James Gypsy Haake, Haake. It's Dutch. And so anyway, so I had all those years of traveling all over the world, dancing with the Gorham dancers. And then through my whole life has been just a series of strange doors opening at the strangest time. So a door opened and investors wanted to open up a cabaret on the Upper East Side of New York because there wasn't one there, a gay cabaret, but with mixed crowd. And so in 1968, 67, somewhere in, yes, I think 67, they opened the Gypsies. And it was a bar that had singing bartenders. I would entertain off the cuff, or just off the top of my head, and had singers. I would introduce singers. So, a lot of them became famous. Nell Carter started there. Jane Oliver started there. Oh. And Christine Ebersole started there. I paid them $100 a night, and they paid for their accompanist, or they used the house accompanist we had. And so that lasted 10 years, and it was fine. And then disco came in, Studio 54, and that whole sort of, I always call it the smoggy drug scene with music. And all these famous people were going to those places. And cabaret just was not doing it. So the people that owned Gypsies, they used my name, and I got paid a huge amount of money, especially in those days. And met a lot of wonderful people. Eileen Ford, she had her agency around the corner from my club, so she would bring lots of famous people in there. And so I went to LA to retire, bought a small house in Beverly Hills, and Vivian Blaine, who was the star on Broadway and in films, but of Guys and Dolls fame, she called me up and said that they were opening a nightclub. In 1980, there was a film from Paris called Cage Aux Folles. And people don't realize, but the man who wrote the script owned a gay nightclub in Paris called Cage Aux Folles.
Okay.
And the owner of that club wrote a script, and that's the story that became, and sold it to the film, and it became the film that won the Oscar. This is long before there was the musical on Broadway, long before.
Yes, okay.
And so a producer in New York opened up a restaurant in Beverly Hills called Le Cage Aux Folles in the 1980s.
Okay.
Early. And it was basically straight. I mean, the waiters were all in drag, and but it was a celebrity impersonator show. It was a structured show, but not sort of like a gay bar show. These were people that were impersonating famous women and famous men. We had a Prince there. We had Michael Jackson. Imitator. It was that kind of show. And so Vivian Blaine took me to the opening night. You couldn't get in. It was sold out, and it was only by invitation only. Every major star in the world was there. Lucille Ball, Milton Berle, Lana Turner was there. Everybody was there.
Hey, I think Frank Sinatra was there, you said?
And he was there. Yes, he did. He came with Tina. He came with his daughter, Tina.
Okay.
And So what happened was, and I was invited there. And Vivian, I knew him from New York because she used to come to my club a lot in New York. And she said, Gypsy, I have a friend coming with us who doesn't have a date that night, so you'll sit with her and us, the four of us. So she got me on the guest list. And my blind date was Connie Stevens.
Oh, my word.
And, we're still friends after all these years and years and years. But anyway, so the owner of the club got up and said, I'm sorry tonight, folks. The drags, the waiters are going to imitate songs and sing for you. And tomorrow night we'll have a star. He didn't have a star that night, which is basically in that show an MC. Mm-hmm. And I had never done drag. I had never put a dress on. I didn't know anything. So Vivian Blaine got up with all these famous people there that she knew, and never these famous people in the audience, and said, well, you have your star here. It's Gypsy from Gypsies in Manhattan, and he's here now, and he'll be the star of the Cage. And that's how I got my first gig.
Oh, yeah. And I think you said Vivian took you out to buy now that
she bought gowns for me, and we did the makeup for me, like Bewitched from Agnes Moorehead and Bewitched. Uh-huh. But I said, I'm not going to wear wigs and I'm not going to wear boobs. I'm not doing that. And so I wore a size 8 dress, and I said, that's glamorous enough. Make the dresses beautiful. And they said, well, you're never going to make it that way. I said, well, that's how it has to happen. So I just did it off the top of my head. And the second night I came out in a gorgeous gown, a fabulous big hat, and this crazy makeup. And I just came out, and the audience was packed. And mostly straight. It was Edie Gourmet and Steve Lawrence were there in front that night. And I just came out and I said, I decided that I wanted to be very different, and I was without me trying it. So when I came out, I did a lot of poses, a very extended opening, and so that the gowns would show, and people would know that I'm not a young, beautiful drag queen, but whatever I am.
I think you said you were 50 years old at the time.
I was 50 years old, yes.
Uh-huh.
Just 51. And so I would look out of the audience and I would say, this all evolved later, but I've always used this opening. So here I am in drag with this gorgeous gown, fabulous hats, or I wore necklaces on my head, just jewels on my head, because I won't wear wigs. And I would come to the audience, stop, and pause, and then I do this. Let me ask you something. Why would a 50-year-old man be dressed like this in this gravelly voice, all dressed like that? And then I didn't let them get time to think about it. And I'd say, well, girls, cash. Cash is the only reason a person should dress like this. And so I did that for years and years and years. And the audiences would go nuts. Lucille Ball, I thought she was going to pee her pants. So, and then we became friends. So within 3-4 months. Now, mind you, this was the beginning of the AIDS horrible mess.
Yes.
So we had all of that. We also had the Reverend Falwell, who was on his big crusade. So the opening, not the opening night, but the opening week that I was there, I was listed as the Masters of Ceremonies.
The Masters of Ceremonies.
Yes. I suppose that sort of made up for no wig.
That's a great name, though.
So, I know. So, yeah, Dan Gore did that for me. So anyway, I come out on within 3 months, you couldn't get in the place. So we had real girl dancers and real boy dancers, but we had straight girl dancers and gay boy dancers. We had six dancers that backed up all of these songs. So you would have Tina Turner, a performer as Tina Turner, and she'd have backup dancers, just as if she was in a concert. So that's what celebrity impersonating was all about.
Yes.
Because if we didn't, it was a structured show. It was fantastic. It became huge. Now, of course, with AIDS, but it was a venue that mostly straight people and very famous stars went to. You know, it was one of those things that caught on to the Hollywood industry, and everybody wanted to go there. And it wasn't, gay people did go, not many, but it was expensive. And so anyway, so the show became a huge hit. Then they had me on a billboards up by Tower Records and the whole 9 yards. And I thought, my God, what a career I'm having now in my 50s. And I'm famous all over Hollywood and Beverly Hills.
Wow, what a fascinating story.
Yeah.
What a fascinating story.
Right.
Well, tell us how you got connected with Mel Brooks and Ann Bancroft.
Oh,
this is a fascinating story. I think that was in 1982?
1982, Christmas Eve.
Yes.
So Christmas Eve, we only did one show. We always did 2 shows. And 6 days a week, we were dark on Mondays. And so now we're into my 2nd year there. And the show is just mind-boggling. We were everywhere. So we were used to seeing all these famous people. Lucille Ball had her own table there when she came. When she wanted to come, she had her own table. Lana Turner had her own table. Everybody, Ross Hunter was always there.
They had their own table. They actually had their own table there. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Bob Mackie, everybody. Cher came, but she never had her own table. She didn't like to sit up front. I'll tell you a big Madonna story too, you'll scream. But anyway, so that's the kind of clientele we had. Although they were drag waitresses, waiters, and it was magnificently done, like in Paris, with can-can dancers, mannequins coming out of the walls, you know.
Yes.
And the whole thing. So we were used to all famous people. So the owner always, or the manager, always had a list in my dressing room of who was coming in that night. So Christmas Eve, we were packed, but it had, let me see, who was there? Roddy McDowell, Tony Danza, Milton Berle, and a few others, plus Mel Brooks and Ann Bancroft, who is his wife. And Mel Brooks had never been there, neither had Ann. And but they'd heard about it, so for some reason they got there with another couple. So they were right up front, one of the front tables. And I did the show. And the show was fine. Oh, Anita Baker was in the audience. And we had an Anita Baker in the show.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, we always did that. And the one in the show was singing Anita Baker's big hit then. And Anita Baker got up off her chair and she started singing live while the act was singing lip sync to her record.
So you had 2
singing. Anita
Bakers.
Yes, the real and the unreal. And that happened many times. It happened with Edie Gourmet. She would get up and do it. And with it was somebody else, but I think, but that was, the audience went nuts.
Yes, and then they would, yeah.
Oh, they did. So anyway, after the show, Mel Brooks sent a note to my dressing room. He'd like to have a glass of champagne for Christmas with me because he enjoyed the show so much. So I get to their table, and a long story makes it short. They asked me a very specific question. Gypsy, if you were the same age you are now, and you were a gay man in 1939 in Poland when the Germans are coming in, and you are the dresser for a famous theater actress and her husband, how do you see that person? I said, well, there's only one way to see it. If the person is gay and they're a dresser for a famous woman, they probably secretly or unsecretely want to be her.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. They secretly they you're saying that they really are thinking they would like to be the person that they're
of course
dressing.
They want to be there.
Oh, I get that.
So their relationship would be that. It's sort of, sort of not like All About Eve.
Yes. Okay.
but anyway, and that's funny you just mentioned that, because that's just what Ann Bancroft said. She said, oh, that's very interesting. So with that, I was going to say goodnight. And Mel Brooks says, we're in town for a couple of days after Christmas. So the day after Christmas, could you come and talk to me some more about that? So I figured he wanted me to talk about what it would be like to be a gay person. He never said why. So I went to 20th Century Fox, where Brooks Films had their offices, on the day after Christmas in 1982. And a long story short, I got up there. There was a big room full of people. It was about 35 or 40 people there, plus Mel and Ann. And Ann Bancroft asked me if I would read a couple lines, because they were doing a movie. So I figured they were doing a movie. So I figured, well, I'll get a consulting fee or something. So I read a couple of lines with her. I'd never read a script like that. And it took a while. She said, we loved you in La Cage aux Folles. That's a wonderful evening. The show is great. And you can just be all you want to be, all things. But this is a film, Gypsy. And a film, it's less is best.
Less is best. Okay.
Less is more real. That's too big. You become a caricature as opposed to a person. And so she said, do you think you understand that? I said, well, I suppose I have never graduated from MIT, so this is as far as it's going to get.
That's what you thought, but that's not what happened.
That's not what happened. What happened was they were in the midst of, they were 3 weeks away from starting the primary shooting on To Be or Not to Be, which is a remake from the 1939 Lubitsch film with Jack Benny and Carol Lombard. This version is 1983, and it stars Ann Bancroft, Mel Brooks, Tim Matheson, Jose Ferrer, Charles Durning, Christopher Lloyd, but the fourth lead was James Gypsy Haake. That was my first film. They signed me to my first film, and I had the fourth lead in the movie, and it started a whole career of film and television.
Wow.
I got huge reviews. It opened in Radio City Music Hall in New York, and then out here in Westwood. So that's how I got started. And Ann Bancroft, she said, now, Mel, we did a film. He doesn't know anything about reverse shots or blah, 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 blah. She said, don't you worry about a thing. I'll coach him. Ann Bancroft, I was in every single week worked, except for 2 weeks of the months that the film took.
Oh, my word.
We had 2 sets on 2 sound stages on 20th. And the rest is history. Because Ann Bancroft coached me herself through the whole film. So my performance was thanks to her. And then, of course, I went on to lots of other films with Jane
And
Fonda.
we're going to talk about some of these because I want my podcast listeners to understand how expansive Gypsy's career was.
But how strange.
Yes. Jane Fonda called him, and
yes, she called me in my dressing room.
And she called and wanted him to do, is it Morning After?
The Morning After, yes. I played her best
with
friend.
Jeff Bridges, Jane Fonda, of course, Gypsy, and RuPaul, right?
No, Raul Julia.
Oh, yeah, Raul Jr. Okay, great. And so,
I know RuPaul will kill me for this, but I don't think RuPaul.
Well, you never know.
Can do a lot. She can do a lot of things, honey, but some things she cannot do.
Yeah, that is. I so get that. And then tell us how you also did Dynasty with.
With Joan Collins would come to the Cage.
Yes. Okay.
Miss Dame Joan Collins. You have to use that title now.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Well, she would come. She had her own table too at La Cage. And she would come there, and she told Aaron Spelling. She said, "Aaron, I want you to write some stuff in, like when we're doing these big party scenes. Write a character for Gypsy." So they did. I played either the catering firm or a party planner. And so I did several dynasties with her. And then I did the movie Male Model with her and Ted McKinley.
Wow, that's incredible. So, what's interesting is Gypsy and I were talking on this, on the Prelude. I think you said you did over 118 shows. I've
done 118 television shows. And I've done 23 films.
23 films. Wow, what a fascinating career. I want them to know you also played a short time on Married with Children.
I did.
Tell us how that happened.
I played Uncle Otto. Well, nobody will believe it. Do you think these people will believe it?
I think they will. I think they will.
I have to call Katie Seagal or Christine Applegate because they're the ones that got me in it.
Okay.
Well, what happened is,
tell us that what
if
happened.
we go back to, in New York in the 60s, when I had Gypsies, one of the people I met who I became very close to was Divine, the wonderful John Waters star. And so we knew each other over the years. So when I was in this big hit nightclub, like Cage Aux Folles in Hollywood, Divine was around. But Divine then did Hairspray, the movie. And the wrap party for the Hairspray movie was at a fabulous, elegant restaurant, French restaurant called L'Orangerie, which was next door, just down the block from where La Cage Aux Folles was. And he asked me to come over. It was on a Saturday night. He said, "Come on over because I have an announcement to make." So I said, "Well, I can't come right now." I said, "I can run down between shows." So I said, "But I'll have to be in costume. I can't get my makeup off because I have another show to do." So she said, "Fine." So I came in there dressed in a Bob Mackie dress, actually, running down the street, the Asiatica Boulevard, into the restaurant. So what happened was he made this announcement on the microphone. The place was packed. All the cast was there. And to say that I'm now going to finally be a big hit on television. My career is going crazy. I'm going to play Uncle Otto on Married with Children. I'm going to play Katie Seagal's uncle. And there were two of us because he's bald-headed. And the other uncle was Uncle Owen, was King Kong Bundy, the wrestler. He was a giant with bald head. So they were going to be a great big bald-headed and a tiny, tiny short, hugely fat. Divine was very rotund and very short. But so anyway, I said, "Well, that's so wonderful." She wanted me there. for the announcement. So it just so happens at that time, I had already done where I was in a film with Shelley Long called Troop Beverly Hills. I played the designer of the Girl Scout uniforms. And I had done most of my shooting, but I had one more day to do. And that was Monday of that week. The day he was to start rehearsals. And for Married with Children. So I was so busy on the set at Universal with Shelley Long in that movie that I didn't watch TV that morning and in my trailer. And so I missed the news that the chauffeur went to get Divine at his hotel to start rehearsals on Monday. And they couldn't get in, and the manager had to open up the door, and he had passed away during the night.
Divine had actually died in his own hotel room. Is that correct?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have to find another Uncle Otto.
Yes. And someone that doesn't look like a short, rotund, beautiful face, bald-headed poor thing. And I said, oh my God. So Katie Segal called my agent. They found out who my agency were. And she told the producers and Christina, said, get Gypsy from Lacage. Get Gypsy from Lacage. So they closed the set down on Monday, because on that set, you rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You plays the camera angles, all the cameras spotting and everything done on Thursday, and 2 live audiences on Friday, 5 and 8.
Wow. Okay.
And then you did pickup shots, and then you could be there till 3 or 4 in the morning. So my understudy went on when I was doing films. I had my contract at Lacage say that I could do films and television or anything else. And so we had an understudy who could take over to do it differently than I do, but they did it. So anyway, my agent told me to leave my car there at Universal, and she took me over to Married with Children set. And then I found out that he had passed away. It was a terrible shock.
Of course, yeah.
I got the role. And I thought I was going to get his contract, but I didn't.
Yeah.
His contract, see, he was going to be a regular because they had him written in each show for the first 3 seasons, or only 3 seasons. Then you become a regular, they'll want you in. But that didn't happen to me. But anyway, remember,
But you continued on very successfely, because you mentioned to me that you did 7 of Merv Griffith's shows.
Yes,
in 2018 and 19, you were contacted by Miley Cyrus.
Yes, I did her music
video with her, and I think you also
and the VMA Awards.
The VMA Awards, you were with her. So,
I danced with her in there.
Yeah. And that was in 2018. So you've had an incredible, wonderful career. And I have
indeed.
You have.
And then I've had all these years in Palm Springs at Oscars.
Yes, at Oscars, yes. By the way, that's a restaurant there.
That's a restaurant and a show, yes. And he was my producer in Vegas and in Lake Tahoe.
Yes, okay.
When Lacage closed in 91, I went on the road. Okay. I was in Europe with a company from New York. And then I'd come back to film. I was still filming then. I'd be on a TV show or whatever. And then Dan Gore, who's the owner of Oscars, before he owned Oscars, he was producing these big shows. And he wanted to know if I was still alive, because they thought I was old then. I was 68.
Well, we showed him that you're still alive, aren't you?
I'm still alive. So I opened on my birthday in 2000 at the Horizon Casino Resort in Lake Tahoe, and we became the longest running show in the history of Lake Tahoe. We were there 4 years, the first run. The second run was 2 years.
Wow, that's incredible, too. Gypsy,
Dave.
you've had an absolutely remarkable, fascinating career, and I think you've covered a lot of generations of top actresses and performers, and even some recent ones like Miley Cyrus and Jane Fonda, of course, is still living and doing well. So you've been connecting with all different types of generations, and that's incredible. For me. I want to talk a little bit about okay.
And Ruta, so I want to talk about stuff.
Well, I just want to talk about, you did have a long-term relationship in the generation that you were living, and you could not come out as gay. You couldn't admit that. You kept it secret. You kept it silent.
But, there is that, there's something about when the general public hears something and they see something and they think anyone connected in any way with that subject, they're all like that. In other words, there are people who think all drag queens are alike. All drag queens are just men that want to put on a dress. That's not true at all. At all.
So tell us, Gypsy, what is true about drag queens? What's your observation?
They're all different lifestyles. There are some men that like to put on women's clothes and live like that, or they even marry. That's their only gig. That's their only thing that in their mind is to dress like a woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lifestyle. Then there are the famous drags from the bars, like in Toucans in Palm Springs or in Vegas, that some impersonate stars, like Hot Chocolate does Tina Turner from Vegas, but and then some of them just do their own thing, or like RuPaul's show. Those queens, they do fantastic makeup and fantastic stuff. They're all different. I was never like that. I was never beautiful. I had gorgeous gowns, and I did my own thing. And so I never worried about that. You could tell that I was insecure about certain things like that, because I wouldn't wear boobs and I wouldn't wear wigs, because I knew I wasn't glamorous enough for that. I couldn't. I wasn't passing myself off as like that. And the bar queens, the bar drag queens, like at Toucans, they're all makeup artists. I never was that. Yeah. So I made
think
my
it's
own
interesting.
niche.
You knew who you were, and you stayed true to who you were. And I think that's pretty fascinating. And I think you knew who you were. You knew the limits you could do. You knew what you were good at, and you also had reality of what you weren't going to do. And I think that was owning who you were at the time. I want to talk about the long-term relationship. You had a gentleman in your life who was your security guard in Las Vegas, and you were together about 20 years.
About 20 years. If you call it together, we were sort of like a loose hinge.
Yeah.
Because first of all, he was 30 years younger than me. Hello. So he was 23 and I was 53. So I was just in the midst of starting my big film career and everything. So when I wasn't filming and a filmer on a TV set, I was back starring in Cage. So the Cage opened up one of its road tours, and I would do 6 weeks in Vegas at the Riviera. So he would be my security guard. So one thing led to another, but he was if you call him straight, I don't know. I don't know who's straight or who's gay. Now today you can't tell anybody. There are times I look in the mirror and say, well, you're old, but at least they can tell what you are.
Yes.
Yes, now you can't tell anything. And of course, to me, the only riveter that I ever met in life was Rosie selling war bonds. I didn't know you put them in your lips and other places, rivets and stuff. So we have all of that today, which is lovely. But I couldn't. I mean, I don't understand what piercings are about, but
Yes,
that's okay.
Well, I mean,
But
times have changed. I think and we have to move forward with the times, but still be real with who we are. I think one of the things that Gypsy told me that I think was an interesting point, showing the security of who he was, because he was with this security guard for some 20 years, who was his security guard. He said, well, they can mess up my sheets, but they cannot mess up my life.
Right.
Explain what that means.
Well, because he said to me, he said, after our first sexual date, he said, I will never give up girls, never give up women. So that was supposed to be my cue as a gay man to say, well, screw you, brother. I'm not. I said, I said, I have a full life and a full career. If you enjoy my company doing this, it's fine. But I don't put, there's no lock and key here.
Yes.
And I said, you can mess up my sheets, meaning we'll have sex, but you can't mess up my life because I'm not going to let you interfere with my life.
Wow, that's an incredible comment. And let's talk
because
about
it's my life.
Yes, I get that.
We never did. It wasn't our life. It was my life.
It was your life. Let's talk about, you went through a really difficult time. You went through the AIDS crisis. You had many of your friends that were dying of AIDS. You were raised during the Stonewall riots out of New York. Tell us a little bit about what that was like and the courage that you had to use to get through all of the AIDS crisis and what happened when you were seeing what happened at Stonewall.
I think what happens when you get to be someone my age and you look back on these epochal events that happened in the world and in your country and to people you look at it now from a distance and you wonder how you got through. Your question was, how did you get through? You don't know how you got through it. You don't know how. It just happened. I got through it because I never became sick. Now, whether I didn't become sick because I wasn't promiscuous, I didn't go to baths houses, I didn't take drugs, I've never smoked a cigarette. Not because I'm so grand or so pure, it's because it never interested me. I've always been the kind of person, if something interests me, I'll go to the thing. If something doesn't interest me, I don't sit around worrying about it.
I hear you. But you were at the time when they had the riots at Stonewall. And
yes, it was horrible.
Tell me how that affected you.
Well, people were not shocked. We heard about it was going on. So I wasn't there the night it happened. I was there the day after.
Okay.
And it was the kind of thing like in that line with Network, the movie Network, when Peter Strange screams out, I can't take it anymore, blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what those queens did.
Yes.
In Stonewall. They said, we're not going to take it anymore. And they fought back. They paid a heavy price, but it stopped everything in its tracks.
I think it's turned the times of, I think it was 1969. I think it finally was an event that people realized that you're not going to physically and mentally abuse gay or transgender
at that same
people.
At that same time in LA, you were having people just sitting in a bar doing nothing, and you'd have the cops come in and arrest them all.
Yes, yeah.
You were doing that. Yeah.
I think it's. I like our young people who were not aware of what Stonewall was, that's where the really fight for gay rights really got its hold, was back in Stonewall.
Stonewall was the linchpin of people fighting back.
Yes.
Not going to just, no, you're not going to come in this bar and you're not going to arrest me just because I'm sitting in a stool having a drink or talking to somebody. You're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
what a powerful message that is for all of us today. As I mentioned, they fought for the rights of gay and transgendered, bisexual, even people. So really,
and I just finished this past year. I just finished filming a feature-length documentary on Studio One called Studio One Forever. Studio One was the first club. It was in West Hollywood in the 70s, where men could dance together. And there's a wonderful film directed by Mark Zeffirelli. The film has already won 6 or 7 film festivals. It's coming to Palm Springs in January, I think.
Fantastic. And so you're still working at 91 years old.
Yes. So they say.
What a passion you have. What a passion you have, Gypsy.
It wasn't me. They had the passion. They called up and said, would you please do this? I said, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. So they showed a lot because I would go to there. Yeah. I introduced the Chippendales there.
Oh, and fascinating. Yeah. It's been such a pleasure having Gypsy in this very colorful and wonderful career that you've had. And here you are at 91. You still are supporting gay rights.
Sure.
And it's such a pleasure for me to get to know you and my partner to get to know you. Hopefully we'll see you again. But I always want to ask, I want to first of all make a comment. You've had a tremendous amount of courage in being able to go through the AIDS epidemic. I remember you telling me, I said, how did you deal with it? And you said, I just kept working. I just kept doing what I needed to do.
I was looking up, yes.
And just because but I also realized you had the sorrow and grief of losing many, many friends. And you were able to grieve that, but still have courage to work and to carry on. And I'm just so proud of what you've done for gay rights. I'm so proud of the career that you've had in your movies and your shows. You've had a very exciting life, and kind of,
I have.
And for me, I kind of live a Hollywood through Gypsy, and being able to really appreciate what you've been
the Hollywood of that era, anyway.
Yes, that's true. But one of the things I always ask my podcast guests, and I thought Gypsy gave some incredible points of those that are maybe struggling with who they are, not liking who they are, maybe hiding who they are. Even though we have come a long way in the gay movement, we are not equal, and we appreciate how far we've become. Many of that has become because of our people that have come out and for example, in Stonewall and fought for gay rights, and those that have stood up and went through fear and used their courage to get through it to fight for equal rights for LGBTQ community. But there's still some that are struggling, even some that are even to the point of being suicidal. And Gypsy, you made some incredible points. I always ask my podcasters, what does your life story that my podcasters can hear that you think could make a difference in their life? Could you share that with us, Gypsy?
Sure. Well, this is just me. This is just my approach. No matter what it is in life, whether it's you can't come out, or your family, or you have family problems or anything, any problem, not even just that. For me, it's always been easiest I do suggest anyone that questions anything about their life to look in the mirror in the morning when they get up. And if you can look in the mirror and say to yourself, I like that person. I like that person a lot. I like living with that person. And nobody's going to tell me that there's something wrong with that person. So you learn to live with yourself, and then liking others is very easy, or you just wait till they come around, and there's two faces in the mirror, the person that didn't like you, and now the person that understands you.
Wow, what a powerful comment. I think you made a comment too. You said if you love yourself, who you authentically are, then you can love somebody else.
You can. It's a great release.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's all about, what if they're having negative thoughts about themselves? Because it sounds good, but what do they need to deal with to like themselves if they're going through a struggle?
Well, it depends on what their struggle is.
Okay.
You know, some people, it's not always about sexual orientation. It can be other things.
Yes.
And so you need help, yes.
And I think it's, as you mentioned, and I think I agree with this, it's all about being rejected by people that love us or say they love us.
Well, but you see, rejection doesn't affect you if you look in the mirror and you love the person you're looking at.
Powerful comment.
If you can live with the person you're looking at, there is no rejection.
That is a powerful point. Say that again, Gypsy. Rejection. I want our listeners to hear that, because I thought that was just such a powerful point.
There is no rejection. If you can look in the mirror and you see yourself in the mirror and you can say and believe it, this is a person that I like. This is a person I like living with. This is the person that has meaning in my life. This is a good person. So if anybody's out there that doesn't think so, that's fine, because you're not in my mirror.
Outstanding. And therefore, you're not rejected, because you're not directed. You're not rejected by the person in the mirror, which is yourself. I am complete. I am complete, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And once you've used the term accepted, once you've accepted yourself, you're the best person. You love yourself, you know what a good person you are, then when you've accepted, the word accept is the opposite from reject. So rejection doesn't exist.
Wow, another great comment. Reject is the opposite of accept. When you accept, you cannot reject. Powerful comments. You've been such a pleasure being on my podcast with me, Gypsy.
Well, thank you.
Some incredible points.
What a great joy it is. It's always a great joy to have people care enough about you, even if they're strangers at first, and you just meet somewhere, like in a restaurant, in a room with your name on it, and you're having a party and you never laid eyes on the person, and this mad thing comes busting in the door with a sweater over my shoulder, and the guy sitting in there says, "Oh, I love that sweater. Yeah, here, have it. I got 3 or 4."
It's a treasure commodity for me. I call it my gypsy sweater, and I'm going to wear it with pride. I'm going to wear it with pride. I want to make one comment about what we were talking about. And Gypsy made so incredible comments about accepting ourselves, because we're the only person we're with 24/7. Nobody's with us 24/7 except ourselves. Right. And what keeps a lot of us from accepting ourselves ties in with shame. You've got to deal with the shame, whatever the shame is in your life, because if you don't deal with the shame will show up in other parts of your life. But when you begin to accept yourself and love you for who you are, the person, as Gypsy said, in the mirror, and you come to peace with him and love him, you then can authentically give that love to others. Because until you accept yourself and love yourself, you cannot pass that love on to someone else. Because if you haven't accepted yourself, it's not authentic. The authentic love comes from accepting and loving yourself, and you can pass that authentic love on to someone else. And Gypsy, you've made such some powerful points on that. It's been such a pleasure having you on your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Continue in your wonderful career. And,
thank you, and hopefully we'll meet again.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. I'm going to go back and check out some of these movies. I've heard some of these movies. I'm going to see which ones I can, because I want to give. I want to see Gypsy in his movies and see the many wonderful things that he's done.
You get to be or not to be 1983.
Okay.
Mel Brooks. We'll start with that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your wonderful comments, encouraging accolades that you've given to my podcast listeners. And thank you once again. My hat's off to you, Gypsy. May you have many more years of wonderful life.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to get to know you.
And thank you to all your listeners. So you little podcasters out there, keep on trucking.
Thank you for your wise comments as well. And you have a wonderful day. Hope to see you soon, Gypsy. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye, dear.
Bye-bye.